Hey there folks, today I'd like to take a casual peek into the Super Imaginative Chogokin, or S.I.C, Masked Rider Kuuga Rising Form Limited set from Bandai. This set was first available in 2007 and I don't know what the original selling price was. From what I've seen online, I think it might have been 3,000 to 4,000 yen at the time. And I got this set in 2013 when I purchased it from Mandarake, which is a Japanese secondhand pop culture web store. And I only paid 1,500 yen for this set, which converted to about $18 to $20 at the time I bought it. Taking a look at the limited set here, and I believe this Kuuga is a re-release of an earlier Kuuga set. I think it was in the early 2000s, but this one's a little bit different in that it contains some outfitting 4 different forms, and there's a total of 4 different forms you can outfit Kuuga in. And Kuuga is in the Mighty Rising form, and you can also outfit Kuuga in the Dragon form, the Pegasus form, and the Titan form, which is pretty cool. And you can see the box here is actually quite nice. It's got this light brown, almost tan color scheme, and also you can see some of the colors on the side here to represent the different forms here. And you can also see in this nice large window display all the different armor forms and some of the eye forms and some of the weapon accessories. Just a lot of accessories, and not just in the front but behind it as well. It's just got quite a lot. And this has a little bit thicker box. You can see some more window design here on the side, and you got the red and purple to represent the different forms. I believe the Mighty Rising form, and I believe the purple is the Titan form. Then you have the blue and the green. I believe this is the Dragon form, and the green might be the Pegasus form. I could be incorrect since I haven't watched Kuuga yet, just based on some of the research I've done. And there's some of the lettering there on the side. More windows design on the top. Bottom of the box has some pictures of the different forms that Kuuga can, I guess, outfit himself in. Pretty nice. Here we have the back of the packaging, and we have more pictures of the different forms of the Mighty Rising form there. I believe this is the Pegasus form there, and this I believe is the Dragon form, and down below is the Titan form. And over here we have some weapon accessories that Kuuga uses in his different forms. And on the side you have symbols here to represent the different forms. I believe this is the Mighty Rising form. I believe that's the Dragon form. This is the Pegasus form, and that I believe is the Titan form. And down here in Japanese print is information I can't read, but you can take a look at it there. Now we'll be right back and have the contents of this set out of the packaging. Okay, well, we're back and we have the contents out of the packaging, but everything is still in their trays. I haven't removed anything yet because I wanted to at least show you all of these different items. It's just quite a bit, and I wanted to show it to you before I started outfitting the Kuuga figure. There were 2 trays in the set. The bigger tray, or the main tray, basically shows what was in the display window. You have the figure here, you have the 3 different armors for the different forms, different eyepieces to go with those forms, and you also have some of the weapon accessories, which is pretty cool and very neat. But I wanted to show at least the second tray that was underneath, and you can see there's quite a bit quite a bit of items here. You have shoulder pads. You have another weapon accessory here. I'm not sure what that is there. I'll have to figure that out in a little bit. But then you have all of these different hands and forearms just to match all of those different forms, which is pretty cool. And also included, as with most Bandai items, is a pamphlet, like a visual guide in how to use all of the pieces that come included. You can see how to outfit the Kuuga figure into the different forms there, and how to replace the armor and the head pieces, face pieces I should say, which is pretty cool. And then you have some other information. This is written in Japanese, so I can't read it, but you can see all the, you can tell which is form is which, just based on the design of the pieces of armor there, which is pretty neat. And then you have some information here. I don't know if this is survey information or not, or registration information, but pretty cool. And also we have wanted to show this off, just the backing card. A lot of Bandai Japan items have a backing card included in the set, and it's usually just a plain black or plain silver in color, but this one had a nice graphic of all of the different forms here, and which is pretty neat. Actually, there's 5 forms here. You have the Rising form, Dragon form, Titan form, Pegasus form, and I think that's Kuuga right there. But it's a nice print here, and I really do like the design. You can see some of the abstract design on the sides here, which is pretty cool. And you got this nice starburst effect, which is really cool. Now, because there are so many different forms in this set, I'm not going to go through the video on how to change all of the parts. Now, I'll probably just show the different forms as they're outfitted, and I'll probably go ahead and show you at least the default form that came in the packaging, the Mighty Rising form, and remove those pieces to show you which pieces can be removed and interchanged. But I won't go through the video doing all of that for each form, and I'll show different forms as they are complete. And we'll go ahead and start with the default Mighty Rising form. Okay, we're back, and before we get into the figure itself, I did want to mention a few things about the S.I.C line. This is my very first S.I.C figure set, and I think it's really cool, and I've had to do a lot of research just to know more about these S.I.C figures, because they are really cool. And if you're not familiar with S.I.C, or Super Imaginative Chogokin, it's a line produced by Bandai that produces highly detailed and highly stylized versions of popular tokusatsu characters. And they primarily focus on Kamen Rider, and but they do other tokusatsu, I guess, franchises. But the main focus is on Kamen Rider, the majority of figures released so far. And another thing about S.I.C is the size. Bandai produces tokusatsu figures from their popular Figure Arts line, which is sized very differently than S.I.C. The Figure Arts figures average about 5 to 5.5 inches in height, while the S.I.C figures are on average about 7 inches in scale. Now, just to do a real quick size comparison, I have a Figure Arts figure on hand, one of G3 from the Agito series, and you can see right away that Kuuga in the S.I.C line, it towers over the G3, and that's something that's pretty unique. Now, I found out that the S.I.C lines fit in very well with another 7-inch line, although different universe, I guess you could say, from the domestic NECA line, which also produces highly detailed figures. And they actually do fit well with S.I.C, at least as far as size comparisons go. And I have a NECA Dutch figure from the Predator line of NECA. And you can see they size relatively well. So if you want to mix universes, you can, which is pretty cool. Now, like NECA, S.I.C has gone through an evolution in their design. S.I.C has been around for over 10 years at the time of this video. They first produced figures in the main S.I.C line since 1999. Which is a long way. So of course there's a progression in the design. Now this particular figure here is what is considered the second generation of S.I.Cs. There have been essentially 3 or maybe more, but I know of 3 generations of S.I.C figures. The first 10 releases or first 10 volumes of S.I.C were pretty much staction figures, basically statues with very limited articulation. And the next generation from volumes 11 to 39 roughly represents the second generation, which Kuuga is a member of. I believe this limited release is a re-release of an earlier Kuuga. I'd like to say volume 12. I can't remember. I have to look it up again. But this represents an early second generation S.I.C figure. And from volume 40 on up, they stepped into a whole new level of generation in design. And when I mention design, it's both in sculpt and in articulation on the generations. And second generation really improved upon the first. In regards to articulation, they moved to ball-socketed joints on here, but it's still, compared to newer action figure lines, the articulation was a bit limited in the second generation, but still very much better than the first generation. And the third generation improves upon the second even more, with better range of articulation and very nicely detailed sculpts. Okay, enough rambling about the S.I.C line. Let's go ahead and take a look at the figure here. Now, this figure is Kuuga in one of the 4 forms in this set. This is the one that was included in the packaging. Now, I mistakenly referred to it earlier as the Mighty Rising form, but I believe it's called a Rising Mighty form. And it's one of the 4 forms in the set. And it's also the form in the set that has the least amount of accessories. He does not even include a weapon. Just has 2 extra hands, which is I don't know if that's tied to the show or not, because I haven't seen Kuuga yet. But just looking at the set, this one has the least amount of accessories. But let's go ahead and take a look at the accessories that are included with the Mighty Rising form. And we have basically just 2 extra hands, a pair, if I can get into focus here, a pair of opened hands here, which is okay. And you can see they are ball joints, pretty much indicative of the second generation of S.I.C there. Pretty cool. And taking a look at Kuuga here, now right away he looks very different than Kuuga on the show. And this is where I really enjoy the S.I.C line, the reimaginations of these characters and these really radical stylings. And it's actually pretty cool. Now you can see that this particular Kuuga goes on a different level on the bug-like inspiration of Kamen Rider. You can see is very interesting in design. Really gone through that insect theme here going on, and it's actually pretty neat. And you can also see the detail that's gone on to this figure. Now, again, this limited release was released around 2007, but it's based on a figure that was released back in, I'd like to say, 2003. So to have this level of detailing on an action figure from that year, it's actually pretty cool. Let's go ahead and start with the head sculpt here. And you can see it's a very nice head sculpt. And very, very cool. You can see the very bug-like nature of this character that they've gone with. And it's got nice transparent eyes, or compound eyes. It's very, very cool. It's very large. And very cool. And you can see the horns here to represent, I guess, the beetle horns of a beetle. Very neat. And it's very well painted as well. And also, looking at the back of the head, you can see where all the detailing, stylized detailing, is going on. You can see what look like cracks in the helmet or headdress area, which is very, very neat. Now, I think that's supposed to evoke a shell-like appearance or a carapace type of appearance, very much like the bugs that the Kamen Riders are draw inspiration from. Very, very cool. You can see the level of detailing on the paint, on the trim of the helmet. Very, very nice. And also, looking at the rest of the figure here, you can see he's decked out in this reddish armor. Now, this particular red is not accurate to the show. Again, this is a stylized take on it. And this red is really almost a brownish color. But you could see, not through the video screen, but in person, that there is some red in here. But on the screen, it looks like entirely brown, but it's a reddish brown on there, and it's very neat. And you can see all the detailing on the trim, which is very cool. And that's all sculpted with reddish wash applied on the gold. It's very, very neat. Lots of detail on there. You can see more detail on the armor here, on the back. Very cool. And also here on the front, the trim on there. And you can also see the arms here, which are exposed. And very different from the cloth or rubberized suits that most Kamen Riders wear. This one actually is skin, or, like I said, a carapace type armor to indicate the stylization for a bug-like nature. And it's also very, I guess, thin on here, almost an emaciated look. But I really like it, especially for this earlier generation of figure. It's actually quite neat. And you can see more detail on the arms here. Very cool. Even to the bracers, they got some painted detail on the gem there. And the back of the hand there with some armor padding. And this represents, of course, Kuuga, the symbol for Kuuga there. Pretty cool. And looking here on the belt, it's pretty cool. Now, S.I.C. has the word Chogokin in its name, in the acronym. And if you're not familiar with Chogokin, it's a term that was originally a fictitious metal material, but has gained popular use as a term in toys to represent a die cast in their toys. And S.I.C. does have the die cast in their product, and one of the die cast pieces here on this set is the actual driver on his belt, which is pretty neat. Now, this driver is removable, and you can see the die cast nature of the driver here. And it also has a combination of transparent plastic, which is very cool, and just nice detail on this driver here. And again, a stylized version of what was represented on the show. And you can see the belt here. I believe this is plastic. This is not die cast there, but it still looks very metallic-like on there. You can see all the sculpting detail going into the belt there, which is very cool. Moving down to the legs here, you have the very bug-like, spindly legs, and that even has detail on there. You could see all the sculpting involved in the legs here, with some light bluish, almost teal type of green along all of the lines here. And some portions of the leg are actually raised on here in the sculpt, which is very cool. Some folks are not a fan of this very thin bug-like structure of Kuuga here, but I like it. I enjoy it. Again, it's a different take on the Kamen Riders, and I think it's a rather unique take, and I think it looks really cool. And here we have some kneecap coverings. Now these, I believe, are die-cast metal as well, which is pretty neat. And we also have here on more of the legs, and you can see it's a mixture of musculature in sculpt as well as armored carapace, which is very cool. You can see the muscle-like structure to the sculpt. It's very nice. And here we have, this is die-cast metal, this is a shin guard. That's unique to the Rising Mighty form of Kuuga. The other forms don't have this shin piece, and which is pretty neat. And here at the feet, again, more like that carapace, bug-like shell mix of muscle and, like I said, I guess a bug type skin, which is very cool. And they even have sculpting detail on the bottoms of the feet, and it's not even symmetrical. It's a unique design on each of the feet there. Very cool. And a very unique take on Kuuga here. Next, we're going to go ahead and go over articulation of this figure. Now this represents a second generation of S.I.C. Now the first generation, like I said, had little to no articulation whatsoever, and the second generation added articulation, and in the form of ball socketed joints. I believe the majority of the joints on here are ball socketed. I think the mid torso area and probably the base of the neck might be a different type of joint, but a lot of it is ball sockets. And taking a look at the head here, the head is on a ball socket joint, and I can rotate around all the way around, up and down, side to side, and can tilt on there. And now the ball joint on this figure is actually a bit loose, not really loose, but shallow, I should say. At least the socket joint here is a little shallow and is easily popped off from the neck if you move the head around in too extreme an angle. So the range of motion is not that great, but you do have nice movement on the head, but just the range is not there, and that's pretty much typical for this entire figure. The range of movement, just due to the ball sockets and this sculpt, so which is a little bit disappointing. But this again represents a second generation S.I.C. figure. Another articulation point is the mouth, which is pretty cool. The mouth actually does open, or at least I should say the mouth area opens, or jaw opens, to reveal a very cool looking mouth there. And you can see some teeth and fangs within. That's actually in a very light gold, yellowish color. which is very, very neat. So you can actually move that jaw up and down. Very cool. The arms at the shoulders can go all the way around. They can go move forward and back slightly due to the ball sockets. And they can go out only about that far, and that's primarily due to the sculpt, the armor running into each other. Now if you remove the shoulder pads, which are removable, you get a little bit more range, but not that much more. There are no bicep articulation joints at the top of the bicep, but there is a ball socket joint at the elbow. And again, due to the sculpt and the ball socket, it's rather limited. You can only bend the arm about that far in and only that far straight. You can rotate it and have a little bit more range depending on the position due to the sculpt. But overall, you can just move it around that much. Now, as you saw earlier on the alternate hands, the hands are on a ball joint at the wrist, so they can go all the way around. And you can go slightly side to side and slightly in and out, but not that much range. Now, the largest range of motion for this figure is the torso, and it's actually quite decent. You can bend the figure downwards about that much, which is nice. Bend it upwards and slightly back, and that's really due to the sculpt fitting very well on the abdomen area. You can see how the torso armor fits right over the belt when you bend the figure down, so kind of cool. There is a ball joint at the waist, so you can turn the figure all the way around, and you can see how the belt driver just popped out there, just running into the sculpt. Let me get that back into place. But you can see the ball joint for the waist there. So you can get it all the way around. You can get it side to side as well as up and down. So that improves the range of the downward movement, backward movement, and side movement of the overall torso. The legs at the hips are on ball sockets. So you can bend the leg forward about that much, down, slightly to the back, and just slightly to the side. And the outward side movement is really restricted due to the sculpt over here, this very sharp point running into the hip. You can, swiveling it forward a bit, get better range on the side movement of the leg on there. So you really have to work with the joints to get the range of movement that you want. Now the knees are on double ball joints. On here you can see the back there, a ball joint at the upper and lower leg. But the range of movement's not that great. It goes about that far back maximum. I'm basically a 90-degree angle for the leg there, and about that far straight. Now, because they're ball joints, you can actually swivel the leg around, which is nice. And the feet are on ball socketed joints as well, so you can get it up and down, all the way around, and even ankle pivot from side to side. So articulation, it's rather limiting just because of the second generation nature of the line, which is rather limiting. But S.I.C in general, especially in third generation above, they're very dynamic on their articulation. This limited Masked Rider Kuuga set includes 4 different forms, but only one base body. To achieve the different forms, it involves part swapping. Now, I'm not going to include the part swapping for each of the different forms, so I'm just going to go ahead and take this Rising Mighty form and show you the parts that can be removed so you can outfit Kuuga in the different forms. And first we'll start out with the eye and bug horn area here. The different forms require different sets of eyes. So you basically just pull on that and you can see there's the eye for the Rising Mighty Kuuga form. And that leaves you basically with 2 peg holes and a slit down the middle to replace the other eyepieces. Also removable are the shoulder pads, and they're just basically fit very snugly over the shoulder sculpt on there. You can see the underneath there. Some folks have issues of parts like the shoulder popping off rather easily, but on this particular figure and this particular shoulder pad, it fits very nicely, nice and tight around the shoulder sculpt. So I really don't have an issue with parts falling off, but they can be removed to reveal the shoulders, and you can see more of that mix of sculpture, mix of musculature and armor, which is rather cool. Also replaceable are the forearms. Each of the forms have unique forearm, basically paint sculpts. So they're on single balled joints, so you can just pull them rather easily on there, and they just pop off rather nicely, which is cool. Now the main armor on the torso is made of a softer plastic, not entirely bendable plastic, but it very much softer than the base figure, and they're pegged in on the sides over here and here, but I've noticed that they're on this figure they're not pegged in entirely, mainly because it's very form-fitting on the figure, the armor, and you really can't even get it to secure the pegs into place. It's very, very tight. But actually, at least for this particular armor, is not an issue, because as you can see, it looks like it's already pegged in, but it's not. It's actually a little loose. But normally you would just unpeg it there. You can see the peg holes on the armor there. And you basically also have to remove the head, and that's rather easy to do, since the shallow nature of that peg hole there. And you just basically pull and lift the armor off, and you can see how this is a softer bendable plastic, but not entirely soft, especially around here. It's very thicker, very much thicker plastic there. And that actually reveals the main base torso of the figure, and you can see the detail on that. They could have gone with just entirely smooth sculpt because of the armor pieces, but they went and sculpted all that nice detail on there. Very, very cool. I really dig the sculpt, and you see the teal colored line on the paint in the line work on there. It's very, very cool. And you can actually see more detail of the mid-torso area for that articulation. You can see without the armor, it bends down even further, and on the arms it bends out a little farther without all that armor. Now, the Rising Mighty form has a unique shin armor here. The other forms don't have that, so you can pop off lower leg here, and that's just on a ball joint. And they include a bare leg, right leg, lower leg, for the other forms. And you can also pop off the foot here, so you can reuse the foot with the alternate leg. But that basically covers all of the removable pieces that will be interchanged with the different forms. Here we have Kamen Rider Kuuga in his dragon form. As of this video, I still haven't watched any of the Kamen Rider Kuuga episodes, so I don't know what the progression is of his different forms. So I'm just presenting these different forms in no particular order. So, but taking a look at dragon form here, you can see he's got a blue color scheme, which is pretty interesting. It's very nice. And this particular form has one extra accessory compared to the Rising Mighty form, and that's here the additional weapon accessory. I guess you can call it a double pronged spear or double bladed spear, which is actually much more than that. But before we take a look at that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the other accessories that are included with the dragon form. And like the rising mighty form, the dragon form comes with 2 additional hands, 1 pair of closed fists right here, and it has some nice texturing detail, and of course paint here, and you have the symbol of the dragon form on the back of the hands there on the armor padding, and you can see the trim going across the armor padding on the hands. It's actually kind of nice. And the other pair of hands that are included in the dragon form are a pair of gripping hands, which are on the figure right now. And you can see that dragon form of Kuuga is wielding this spear, which is actually kind of cool. One thing though is that the gripping hands for dragon form are very, very tight, and it's very difficult to get the spear into Kuuga's hand. So I'm going to go ahead and do this off screen, where I'm going to remove the spear from Kamen Rider Kuuga. Alright, we have the spear removed from Kuuga, and I just want to take a closer look at the details of this spear. It's actually quite cool. You can see each end has a blade on there, a double-edged blade, I guess. Very cool. And the spear handle is very nicely done. Now the handle itself is made of die-cast metal, which is pretty cool, so it's very durable. But the blades themselves are made of just plastic. But still, this is very, very nice. You can see all the details on the spear handle. The edges of the spear are painted in this darker blue. I'm not sure if it's showing up on the video screen very well, but it's very, very nice on there. And the rest of the spear is in this darker brownish bronzish color. Very nice. And looking at the details of the spear tips and the blades on them are very nice. They're painted in gold, and you can see an orb right here, which is very nice. Now, I mentioned that the spear is actually much more than just a spear. It's a 2-bladed spear, but you can also make it a 1-bladed spear, or not even a spear but a staff, in that the blades themselves are actually 2 pieces of plastic that are pegged together, and you can pull them apart. Actually, I found this out when they were in the packaging. They were actually kind of loose, so you can see how I'm wobbling on here, and basically you pull holding on to this end here, just pull it up a little bit, and then you could see a rounded peg and a flat peg here, and you can see the slots here, and the blades come apart. So the only thing holding the blade onto the spear itself is basically the tension of these 2 together. Now, I don't know if this was intended or not. I would think that if it was intended or not intended to be removable, they would have glued these together, but they're not glued together. So I'm thinking that the intention is to have a possibility of different posability with the different types of weapons, and you can have a non-bladed spear if you want, or you can have a single-bladed spear as I have right now. But you can see the orb detail here. Very cool, nicely sculpted. And so you can have a single-bladed spear if you want. Now the other blade is removable as well. You just pull out slightly here and release the tension, and then just pull them apart there. And now you have a staff. So I think it's rather neat that they did not glue those together, so that you can have different options with this spear. Very, very cool, and I think it's rather neat. Now, taking a look at the dragon form of Kamen Rider Kuuga, you can see he has a blue color scheme on here, and much like the Rising Mighty form, he's got a similar armor but a little bit different. The sculpt in the musculature of the armor, or I shouldn't say musculature, but the design on there is slightly different. Let me just get the Rising Mighty form here. You can see the sculpting is just a little bit different and make it unique. And also the trim here is different. It's on the sleeves instead of top and bottom. You do have some trim at the top, at the collar area, but it's just flat instead of decorated like the Rising Mighty form on there. So that's kind of cool. He does have a pair of shoulder pads. These are colored black instead of blue. I'm not sure if that was intended or not, but I think it is, based on the pictures on the box. But still, it's pretty nice. It's got the gold trim as well. Very cool. Take a look at the back of the armor here. Very nice. He still retains the belt. That's not going to change on any of the forms in this set. So that's the same. But taking a look at the head sculpt, the eyes are now blue. You still have the same horn design on there. So that's pretty interesting. But I do like the blue color on the eyes. I think it's rather nice. Also, a little bit different in this form are these here, which the forearms, they're a very dark blue, darker than the torso armor here. And it's making this particular one look black. This one you could see that it's a darker shade of blue, but I'm not sure why this one looks darker overall. But to the naked eye, it's actually, to me, it looks the same color on there, but on the video screen it's a little bit different. So, but still pretty nice. I do like this form. It's especially the spear or staff accessory, and I think it's rather neat. Now, putting this particular form together, the dragon form, it did remind me of another figure line that I think this dragon form can go well with, can mix well with. It's a line from a different universe, of course, and a different company altogether. It's the line called Gothotropolis. That's mainly run by the Four Horsemen. And they created a line of figures in the Gothotropolis line that were Egyptian-based in theme, but certain figures in their line had a scarab-like theme. And looking at the color and just the overall look of dragon form, it pulled out my one of my figures from the Gothotropolis line, and we have this guy here, and you can see it actually fits well. This particular figure has a scarab-like design to it, and mixed with other designs, but the face particularly has a scarab-like face. And I think this figure actually goes well with each other, and you can see they're very similar in size. And with the bug theme here, or beetle theme, or scarab theme, if you want to go that way, I think it actually fits nicely. And I think for the relatively inexpensive price this set is going for, compared to when it was first sold, you could probably just army build these guys for warriors for the particular figure that I have. So, but still, or you could, if you prefer the Kamen Rider reimagining here of Kuuga, you can do that as well. Now, articulation-wise, it's essentially the same as Rising Mighty form. I'm not going to go over the articulation on here. I'm just going to note any differences, and this particular one has no differences. I thought maybe there might have been more clearance on the arms at the shoulder, but that's basically the same. But no articulation differences between those two forms. So this is pretty much it for the dragon form of Kuuga. Here we have Kamen Rider Kuuga in his Pegasus form. Of the 4 sets of forms that are in the package, this one is the most unique among them. It's a very asymmetrical design for Kuuga, and Before we get into the Pegasus form, let's go ahead and take a look at the items included with Kamen Rider Kuuga in Pegasus form. First up, we have hands, or a total of 4 hands in Pegasus form. 2 of them are closed fists, which are pretty cool. And as I mentioned earlier, a very asymmetrical design, and the other pair of hands are a trigger figure hand on the left and a grasping semi-open hand on the right, so that's kind of cool. And you can see Kuuga here wielding this bow-like blaster. I'm not too sure what it's called. I'm not familiar with it, but it looks like a bow and a blaster combined into one. Let me just get this out of his hand here. And you can take a look at the design of this bow blaster. I don't know what to call it. It's very cool. I haven't seen what a show-accurate weapon looks like, at least not yet. But this one, I'm gonna guess, is a stylized version of what's on the show. Very cool. And it's made of a combination of die-cast metal and plastic. Die-cast metal being these pointy blade-like things on the side of this bow blaster. And the rest is actually made of a combination of soft and hard plastic. Well, I shouldn't say soft, semi-hard plastic. Like the portions of the bow here, you can actually bend it a little bit, but not too much. And like the grip is made of a harder plastic. And speaking of the grip, you can see the details on this is very, very cool. I like this. And you even have a little green gem at the bottom of the handle grip there. Pretty nice. And you got this nice glossy green here. And I'm not sure what this is. It looks like a pull lever, maybe to load this weapon. And this is actually made of die-cast metal here. Right, this pull mechanism. So that's kind of cool. And just more details on this weapon. It's very cool. Now, the figure that has the trigger finger hand can grasp the blaster here adequately. It's a little bit loose, but which is unfortunate. But it has a decent hold on it. It's not too bad on there. I really like the design, especially the sculpt here, the etching on the die-cast metal portion of this. It's actually very cool on there. And also in here, in the plastic portion of the bow-like area, there's more of that design that was on the armors on there, and that's in the recessed area of this bow portion of the blaster. Very cool looking weapon. Now, taking a look at Kuuga in his Pegasus form. As I mentioned, the most unique of the armors or forms that's included in this set, like I mentioned, it's a very asymmetrical design. You can see, especially along the arms here, it's actually very interesting. I do like this armor for the torso. It's very cool. You can see the scale-like pattern in the rib area. Sorry about that, my memory card was full. But continuing on, it's got that nice scale pattern to the rib cage area. It's very cool. And there's also a black wash applied on this. You can see it really in the recessed areas of the armor, which is very, very nice. Taking a look at the head here, of course the eyes are green. Actually a very nice green. I like the color. It's a darker green than what's showing up on the screen. But it's very, very cool and very, very nice. And speaking of earlier about the asymmetrical design, you have along the arms just different parts of armor. They're not really equal in any way. Even in the shoulders, they're totally different shapes and designs, and it's actually kind of cool. You can see here on this one, you got a big band of gold on the shoulder and some design work on the green portions of the area, and this is like a glossy type green with a black wash on there. Very, very nice. And on this one, this is a black colored shoulder pad with underneath the pad some more armor in a different shade of green than the rest of the armor. I can't really, it's like a bluish green on here, and that has some sculpting line work as well, and it's pretty cool. And then you also have this armband armor, very similar to the shoulder armor on the other side. A combination of gold and green with some sculpt work on there. So just very asymmetrical and very unique amongst all of the other forms, and it's just really, really cool. Oh, I forgot to point out some of the design work on the armor and the gold trim on the top, which is very nice. So, and of course you got the green bracers or forearm armor there, which is pretty cool. One thing I forgot to mention amongst all of the different forms are the hands in these figures. Having to put the exchange hands in the process of changing all the forms, it's very difficult. The ball joints are very, very tight, and on one of mine I was accidentally able to pull out the ball joint. The ball joint was stuck into the wrist area. It was not on this one, but on another form. So I had to get a pair of needle nose pliers and pull the ball joint out of the socket. Fortunately, it looks like it wasn't glued into the hand, but it's just very tight. So you have to be aware of that when exchanging hands for the figure. But speaking of the Pegasus form, I really dig the Pegasus form in this set. Probably my favorite out of all the four forms. Here we have the Titan form. This is a pretty crazy form compared to the other three in this set. This form has the largest number of hand sets, has the largest number of weapon accessories, and has probably the most intricate of the armor designs. And before we take a look at this form, let's go ahead and take a look at the items that are included in this form. First up, we have hand sets, a total of 3 hand sets. A pair of gripping hands, where the figure is wielding at the moment, and the other 2 hand sets are a pair of closed fists, you can see here, and it has the Titan form on the hand padding there on the armor. And the other 2 hand sets are basically open hands with the fingers curled. I don't know if they're true grasping hands, more look for, I guess, emotive display, I guess. And again, nice detail on the back of the hands, especially with the gold trim around the armor padding on the hand there. Pretty cool. Now, the other 2 items included with this form are the pair of swords, which is very interesting, and I'm going to go ahead and take these off the figure off screen because the figure has a very tight grip on them. Taking a closer peek at the 2 swords that came included with Titan form, there are sculpt-wise pretty much the same. I don't think there are supposed to be any differences. There are paint differences though, and material differences. Paint-wise, the one on the left you could see is a little bit darker, at least in the gold areas of the sword, at least along the blade and the hilt, compared to the one on the right. It's a little bit brighter, and that's due to the materials. The one on the left is die-cast metal, while the one on the right is entirely made of plastic. So, the heft to these swords, of course, is different. The die-cast metal one here is a lot heavier than the one on the right. So when you're posing the figure with both swords, logically you would want to have the lighter sword here in plastic if you're going to have the figure wielding the sword aloft higher. So just due to weight, this does bring the arm of the figure down just due to weight on this die-cast metal sword. Just to show the details on the swords, you get a closer look here at the die-cast metal one. Very nice details, especially along the hilt area. Very, very nice. And just really, really cool for a sword. I really like it. And then you have die-cast metal along the blade here. Now this part of this sword is not die-cast metal. It's actually plastic on the tip here. I'm not sure why they just didn't go with all die-cast metal or not, but still pretty cool. Also another thing is the plastic one here. Let me just show the details of the plastic one. You can see how the paint on the gold is a little bit brighter on there. I think that's just due to the material that the paint is on. Just makes it look a little bit brighter. But the really cool thing about the die-cast metal version is this gold tip. I don't know if it was meant to be removable or not. I've seen the Figure Arts one, and it looks like it's supposed to be part of the sword. But it's non-removable on the plastic version here. But on the die-cast metal one, you can actually pop that off. And actually, there we go. And you can see they even went to the lengths of sculpting the rest of the blade, and it comes to a point on there. And you can see some more details on the tip of the blade there. So that's really, really cool. So I don't know if these are supposed to be sheaths or not, but I kind of doubt it, because what I've seen of the other blades from the Titan form, it looks like that's part of the blade itself. I could be wrong. Like I said, I haven't watched the Kuuga series. But it's interesting thing to note between the two differences between these swords. And they're just really, really cool, especially that detail in the sculpt. It's just very nice. I really like these swords. Taking a closer peek at the Titan form of Kuuga, and that's a pretty cool form. It's the most detailed, at least armor-wise, compared to the rest of the forms, and probably the most heavily armored. And very cool looking. Now I gotta mention that my camera does not process the shade of purple very well. Actually, for some reason it converts the shade of purple into a bluish tint. And trust me when I say that in person this is actually purple and not blue. You just have to picture it in your mind's eye. And it's not a deep color purple, but a medium to lighter shade of purple. It's pretty nice overall. And just taking a look at some of the details on this particular form, you can see the eyes are in a purple transparent plastic, which is pretty cool. Now, because it's a little darker compared to the rest of the eyes on the other forms, it's very hard to see the detail within transparent plastic, but it's there if you look hard enough. But it's still pretty cool when you can see it. And on the armor itself, it's sculpted to be more heavily armored compared to the rest of the forms. You have right here an extra piece that's actually, it's not an extra piece, it's really all single sculpt on this main torso area, but it's extra sculpt, a raised area of the armor going around the neck, and you can see how much higher it is compared to the other forms, where the helmet is under the top line of this piece of armor around the neck. And that's pretty cool. It looks like a separate piece of armor, but like I said, it's all one sculpt on there, and turned out pretty nicely. And of course you have the flared out shoulders compared to the other forms. It just goes out, and it looks larger because of the thinner arm, so it looks larger compared to the other forms of shoulder pads. But it does flare out a bit, and it's kind of cool is underneath here you can see the sculpt of the arm, of the shoulder joint area, which is not part of the arm, it's part of the shoulder joint. If you pop this out, you can see right here, and you can see some of the details along the bottom edge of the arm, a shoulder part of the armor there underneath. Pretty cool. And looking at the rest of the armor here, you got this multi-layered effect going on in the ab area, which is pretty neat, and a slight wash of paint that you can especially notice on the rib area of the armor. And of course you got that gold trim detail, which is very, very cool, and you got that nice sculpted design in the trim, and a slight reddish wash as well. And of course the trim goes on the shoulders and on the shoulder armor pads, and it wraps around here on the back, which is very, very nice. There's more sculpting detail here on the armor, and a wash of paint in the recessed areas. So very, very cool. And of course the forearm arm guards are painted in the same shade of purple. Although this one's a little bit darker, but that's not too bad. I think it's more due to the wash of paint that's been applied there for the shading. But still a very nice armored up form of Kuuga, the Titan form. And as far as differences in articulation, because of this armor form, there really isn't that much. All of the shoulder pads on all of the forms do restrict the arms a bit, actually quite a bit, and so you really can't get too much outward movement on the arms. But other than that, it's pretty much the same articulation as the rest of the figures. Oh, I did forget to mention that the leg armor that was on the Rising Mighty form, which had the die-cast metal plate for the shin, that particular lower leg was a little bit looser, but with this alternate leg piece, articulation is much tighter on here and can support a greater amount of weight, especially with the die-cast metal sword here, which is pretty cool. This leg here has always been a little bit loose. You don't have a replacement there, or and a method to tighten it up. So you have to apply that yourself using super glue or nail polish or what have you to tighten up that joint. But overall, this is a really great set. Some folks have issues mainly due to the sculpt of Kuuga, but I really enjoy this alternative take on Kamen Rider Kuuga, and I really enjoy this S.I.C line, and has become my latest import obsession. I plan to get a lot more S.I.C figures, and this is a great one to start out. An older one, but still a nicer one to get started on. This is my casual peek into the S.I.C Mask Rider Kuuga Rising Form limited edition set. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.